Guys, welcome back to my channel again. Here's another one of Ray's starting with the basics. So I had an electrician come in and he did some major work on my house. Well, unfortunately, when he dug in to dig a grounding post, he unfortunately found my internet cable. That internet cable is supposed to be 2 feet deep, so the provider is going to come out and keep burying that. But I'm going to go over what I actually did to put this back together so that way I could actually still have internet while I'm waiting on my provider to come out. So stay tuned and we'll go over those steps. Hey guys, alright, so we were outside there and I showed you what that cable looked like under the ground that the electrician accidentally cut. It wasn't very deep enough. I called the people to come out and they're going to come out and fix it, thankfully, so I don't have to worry about that. But if I needed to go ahead and still have service in the meantime, I could do basically a patch job to it and still bring my system back online, so that way I actually have the ability to still have internet or phone or cable or whatever. So what they lay in the ground is called a data cable. Data cables are something that are usually very specific. However, a lot of data cables that they put, unless it's a fiber optic cable, which is a very specific type, it's going to come in a cable just like this. So this is just an Ethernet cable. So the only thing that I did was I took an Ethernet cable outside, took it apart, spliced it in, and away we go. So out here I got some of the supplies that I actually used for that. I have what they call a soldering iron right over here. You don't need this for that particular type of repair, but it does give you a little bit more of an actual better quality connection if you do this. You don't need to do that, but I would recommend it. Another thing that I don't have on the table in front of me is what's called heat shrink, or something else called an environmental heat shrink or environmental splice. Heat shrink is something when you heat it up, it shrinks down. An environmental splice or environmental heat shrink actually has like a little sealant on the outside, like an epoxy or a paste or something. When you heat it up, it activates it, so when it shrinks down, it creates a seal that doesn't allow any moisture or anything else to get in there. So you're going to need that. If you're going to utilize any kind of solder, I would recommend that you have flux. You also have alcohol and an acid brush. Go ahead and clean it off. So that would be something there. You're going to need something to wipe the alcohol and the acid brush stuff off with, and that's why I use these Temp wipes here, so I keep a hold of those. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is actually open this cable up. Alright, so I got my cutters here. Remember those yellow handled ones that I showed you before? I told you that you could use them in other instances. Well, if you don't have that other pair that you had that's designed for cutting like wire, specifically like thicker wire or something like that, you're cutting something like this, it'll pop it right off. Then you need to actually cut back, right? You need to actually cut this open right here, so that way you can expose the wires and the strands that are inside. Well, that one knife that I told you that I didn't use that much because of the way it broke off on the tip, I'm going to use it for this application because I don't need a lot of pressure. I just need a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put that pressure in, pull back. Doesn't take much. If you push too hard and you cut too far through the shielding, you'll actually cut the wires on the inside and damage those, and then you'll have to cut it a little bit further. Alright, so you can see that coming apart there. I got all kinds of different wire in here, all kinds of different colors, different twisted pairs, all that good stuff. So, the different colors have different meanings usually. And the only meanings that they really have is they'll tell you that one color goes to a particular pin or one color goes to another pin. It doesn't matter if your data line in there or any other cable that you are actually doing this particular type of method, patch type, or you're doing a repair job to it. If you do this, you just need to make sure whatever color you have on the one end matches the same color on the other end. So if I had a cable that had red wires and yellow wires in it, right, where this doesn't have any red or yellow, it's got green, purple, blue, orange, white and green, white and purple, white and blue, white and orange. If I had a red, a yellow, a black, right, I would take whatever color I matched with the one side on this side. So let's say I put orange to black. On the other end, where I was doing the same splice, I put orange to black. Easy day. You keep the colors marked in the same spot, you know that your wires are still connected to the right one. So if you have it exposed on both ends, do the same thing to that cable that's in the ground or the other cable you have in your possession. Open it up, same color wire, same color, same side. All right, so they make something called wire strippers, which are these bad boys right here. They have different sizes on them. Let's see if it'll focus in on that a little bit for you. There we go. So those different sizes tell you the different gauges of wire. The higher the number, the smaller the gauge, the lower the number, the bigger the gauge. And what that equates to is the lower the number, the thicker the wire, and the higher or the bigger the number, the smaller the piece of wire. So if you don't have wire strippers, which most people won't, you don't have these type of wire strippers, then you can use a blade like this one or like this one. Now if you're using this kind of blade, you want to be very careful because ones like this have twisted wire on the inside. So I'm going to pull this back right in front of you. I'm going to cut some of this off here. And I cut it just until I start to feel a little tension, and then I move. You'll feel it grab that copper underneath. And if you do it this method, you have to follow that line that you started, which should be pretty easy to see because it turns up a little bit of a shade on there. And you pull that right off, just like that. I usually twist mine together just because it holds everything in place. So you can see how it's green down below, and it's got coppery color up above. So what I would do, I'm just going to stay on this one side here to kind of speed things up, is I would take the other side that I'm trying to connect it to. I would cut that insulation off as well. Just like this. Find my line. Follow it around. Grab this, pull this off. There goes that piece. Take that twist. Then there's the purple one with the copper above. Move that out of the way so I don't cut myself. And there's the green one with the copper above. I'm going to line both of those up and then twist them together. You can see how both of those come together and come up to that point up top there. All right, so that is technically a repair. You could put heat shrink over that, or the environmental heat shrink environmental splice straight over top of it. Heat it up with a heat gun, a lighter. Sometimes if you're using a lighter, you got to be careful. A heat gun, you still have to be careful, but usually you can adjust the settings. Heat it up until it's good and shrunk down on there, and that'll do it. If you want a better connection to it, you want to add solder to it. Solder is something that's used in a lot of electronics on motherboards and that kind of thing. And you would take a soldering iron, like what I showed you earlier, and you take a little bit of flux. You put the flux on first, heat up the soldering iron so it can melt some solder, put some solder on the tip, and then run the tip over the top of that wire, and that'll seal everything together. Then you can put your heat shrink on it, or your environmental heat shrink over top of it, and that'll give you the highest quality connection that you can get whenever you're doing a splice. There you go. So I'm going to be covering how to actually do some solder work in a different video. I'm not going to cover it in this one. I'm trying to keep these kind of set up so they're pretty easy. So that is a connection that'll put you back in service. If for whatever reason you accidentally cut a line, don't sweat it, especially if it's a data line like this. You got a Ethernet cable that's around the house. Grab your cutters, grab yourself a knife, if nothing else, and some electrical tape. If that's all you got, and you got it exposed, you can fix it. You might want to call your cable company and have them come out and actually fix it the right way. But it is what it is. All right, so now you should should have the tools. Now you have the knowledge. Now you can save yourself some money and keep yourself in business. Well, thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Raise Starting with the Basics. Don't forget to hit the like button down below. And also, if you want to see more of these coming up, go ahead and hit the subscribe. Also, if you want to see more of these coming up, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.